and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. My name is Colette and today I'm here to do the reading for the solar eclipse that's just taken place in Sagittarius on the 4th of December. Big energy, new moon in Sagittarius. Solar eclipses are always big energy. It only lasted for about 2 minutes and I have put the astrology part of this reading up already on my channel, so if you're interested in the astrology part at all, then go and check that out for yourselves. The reading that I'm doing for myself, for the collective today is for I've completely lost track of what I was saying there. The reading that I'm doing for the collective today is the tarot part of that reading, so this is the second part of the solar eclipse reading. So solar eclipses are always, as I was saying, big energy, and they talk about revolution, change, big changes, long-lasting changes. So although the solar eclipse only lasted for 2 minutes, its energy is going to last into 2022. So throughout December we'll see these shifts and changes occurring. Again, if you're interested, there will be a link in the description box down below for you to go and check out your own astrological chart and to see where this could have occurred for you individually, house-wise, and how that's going to show up personally in your own life. It could be in house 2 or 3, 7, whichever house it's in. But for the collective, it's in the 9th house, which is the Sagittarius house. All about truth and justice, pushing beyond our boundaries, philosophy, higher learning, all that kind of Sagittarius energy is going to come very much into the forefront over these next few months. So I'm doing something slightly different today, and I must admit I'm a little bit nervous about it. I have kind of done this before with these cards. The cards that I'm using are the cards known as the Inner Vision cards. So I'm not doing it as a straightforward tarot reading. So this really is going to be a complete interpretation of the cards and what I'm seeing in the cards for myself personally and for the collective, how I interpret it. But the first card that we're starting out with here, interestingly, is known as the Wheel of Life or the Wheel of Karma, which is, I find, very interesting because we've just reached the end of a certain, like the South Node and the North Node. Again, if you watch my astrology, I will go further into that, but the South Node and the North Node are just about to move out of the sign of Sagittarius and Gemini that they've been in for the last 18 months and have been having a big effect on where the energies are at this time, where we're all heading collectively, and also what we're needing to let go of. So this is a South Node solar eclipse. So this is basically saying that the wheel of fortune is turning and it's time to let go of all that is no longer working for us when it comes to that Sagittarius energy. So let me just read the Wheel of Life, and it says, that light's really bright, as long as our actions are dominated by anger, ignorance and pride, we are lost in a world of illusions, spinning in an endless cycle from which we will not escape. As powerful mirror for spiritual aspirants, a powerful mirror for spiritual aspirants, this wheel is bound by the sharp taloned limbs of Mara, draped in fire and blood-filled skull caps. Every situation, however horrific, offers the opportunity for liberating insight into our true condition. And that again is one of the things of Sagittarius as well, is liberation, justice, truth, freedom, liberation. Liberation from the dogmatism that holds us back, the dogma, the things that we get stuck in and can't push ourselves beyond, like in a philosophical way as well. So we kind of get ourselves trapped in how things are, and that kind of belief that it's always going to be that way, it always has been that way. But of course that's not true, because everything changes, and this is what the Wheel of Life is talking about in many ways. So so go beyond this conceptual, logical realm of deluded existence that is the material world. Look deeply into your essential being. The whole universe is being played out inside you. You are infinite. And the words on this is veil of illusion. So that's the overall energy for the reading, which I find quite fitting for this solar eclipse that has just taken place. So the cards themselves don't have any numbers or actual titles. Well, they do, but that's from the book, and I'm not going to look in the book. I'm going to give them my own interpretation. And how I'm seeing this today is like this being here, this pillar is kind of coming through for me as it's a bit like the tree of life in a way, but it's coming through more as kind of disconnected, like these are disconnected parts of our history, if you like, our society. It's like this one pillar here is like the pillar of truth, like something very strong, very rooted, but all of this is kind of broken away, and it's all kind of gone off and done its own thing. It's like all these different separate parts of this truth which have all been fragmented is kind of how it's coming through, these fragmented truths. So none of them contain the whole, and yet at the same time they do, but it's like they've all, because they've been split, they can't kind of remember what the whole truth was, if you like. It's like the whole truth has been fragmented into these different parts, is how I'm seeing this coming through. Divided. And so this one central pillar of truth and knowledge and wisdom is still there, but there's a, and that's where this card comes into as well, which is interesting, because I'm also seeing this here, I'm seeing it definitely as a very Saturn energy. If you see that ring that's going around there, that looks very Saturn-like to me, even though it kind of has a resemblance to the sun as well. But I'm kind of seeing it as these, because there's all these little, if you can see, these little beings that are all kind of busy doing their thing in their own kind of worlds, if you like. And I'm kind of seeing that like each one of these is these kind of disconnected parts where they've built up their own kind of societies, and it's all, like as I was saying, disjointed, disconnected, and yet all bound together. And there's also this sense of kind of impending doom in a way, with this big red fiery looking planet in the background there, but nobody's kind of paying any attention to, because they're so kind of caught up in all of this, like everyday life, so to speak. Everyday tasks, survival, staying alive. We've kind of forgotten the bigger picture, is how it's coming through. It's like this, because this is the challenge, this is the block, is to see beyond, to understand the bigger picture, is how it's coming through for me, which is very Sagittarian energy, pushing those boundaries, seeing all of it, not just kind of like the microscopic side of things. See, we're opening it up, opening up the vision, And also kind of reconnecting as well. Reconnecting things, bringing things back to the center in order for it to become whole, is how it's coming through. And there's also this kind of message of like, as we get higher and higher up this mountain here, it's kind of disconnecting us from our roots, if you like. It's kind of like, yeah, disconnecting us from where we started, and how, because it's almost like how it's coming through is almost like we're leaving, how can I put it, like as it okay, so as it goes up this tower, it's almost like this tower gets more and more narrow and narrow and narrow. So there's less and less space for a start, but there's also less resources, is how it's coming through as well. There's less to work with, there's less resources, and so it's like we have disconnected ourselves. All the resources are down here, but there's also something about this kind of like forgotten, like this has been forgotten, and it's like this has become, again, it's kind of connected to each of these like, how can I put it, like each one of these is this here, so to speak. Like each one of these is its own society built up, and each one is kind of disconnecting itself further and further, whereas this here is like this central pillar. So this is where we get everything that we need from, but we're kind of removing ourselves more and more from the source, is how it's coming through. From the source of what feeds us and sustains us. So as we go further, like I was saying, as we climb higher up the, maybe up the corporate ladder, maybe, that kind of sense, higher, climbing higher, status, all that kind of material idea, there's less and less room, less and less people can get to that pinnacle. But the higher up you go, the less connected you are to everything else. So let's see what else comes through for me here. In our heads and what we're aware of is an interesting card. And I see this as this kind of flower. Again, it's this kind of sense of like nature or perfection, something that is already doing what it's meant to do. It doesn't need to be changed at all. It is what it is. And it's like again, it's almost like the source energy here, returning to that source energy. And these drips here that are coming down, it's almost like they're kind of falling in this deserted desert. There's this tiny little bug, if you can see that tiny little bug there. He's kind of like, looks like he's kind of looking around for scraps of something, like thirsting. And he's got his head down, and he's kind of very oblivious. It definitely looks like a desert because it's got cactus there as well. But it's like this, it's like it's here. It's here, but this little bug here, which is kind of representing us to me today, is kind of missing all of this. And again, it feels like these kind of this wisdom. It's kind of constantly coming down. Like it's always there, it's constantly there, but it's easy to bypass it. Because you have to kind of go off the beaten track to find it as well, is what I'm being told here. Because this road, it's like if you stick to the road, then you miss the magical. What am I being told here? What am I getting? You miss the unique. It feels like wisdom. It's like the wisdom of life, if you like. You miss the wisdom of life because you're just so focused. Again, similar to this here. So focused on the everyday tasks that the road is taking you on. Like the road basically is representing, like for me, like normal. It's the road is kind of there. It's already set out, and you're supposed to just follow it and not deter off of it, not to kind of go off and explore other paths for ourselves. And by doing so, we miss these, again, it feels like these drops of wisdom, this higher level of seeing something, because it's like a flower in the desert. Is how it's coming through. So as long as we kind of stick to that conformist kind of path that would just take us where it wants us to go, then it's like the mediocre is how it's coming through. It's like the mediocre path. It's like, you know, you're going to get there, you're going to get from this part to the end of it, and yet you're going to be very limited in your experience of life. And you're going to miss, again, it's kind of coming through like the miraculous. You're going to miss the miraculous. You're going to not see almost like what's right in front of us. So the energy that has been around for a while but is passing away is an interesting card as well. You can see that big kind of wasp, hornet, bug creature, insect, hive mind is what's coming through for me here. Also with these kind of demons in the eyes there as well, to do with fear, being controlled by fear, being controlled by our desires as well, because there's this big flaming red crotch or vagina, whatever you prefer to call it. And this kind of reptilian eye here with this kind of reptilian bridge. But what I'm getting more than anything from this particular card is the fear element. Almost like having to cross over the bridge of our desires, of being controlled by our fear and our desires. And this big sting here as well looks very ominous. but there's this, it's kind of like you have to cross that bridge in order to get beyond this, which is kind of, yeah, again, our own fears. Similar, it's coming through similar as the Devil card in Tarot for me today. But it's also interesting as well because I see it as the energy or the force, if you like, that keeps us on this road and doesn't allow us to escape and to find the miraculous in our lives, because we are so kind of caught up in our fears and control. It's coming through as very controlling energy. It's like, do we dare step on this bridge to get to the other side, to come away from this kind of idea of just living that kind of conformist normal life is what's kind of coming through. And what will happen if we do? What happens if we do step on this bridge? Again, it just feels like a lot of fear-driven energy that is all about control. And this reptilian bridge as well, because the reptilian side is interesting because there is a part of our own brain that is still very reptilian. It's known as the amygdala, and if you look it up, there is this very strong connection with the amygdala and like empathy and compassion and being able to empathize with other people, which is something that these kind of creatures are very separate. They don't like any of that emotional stuff. It's like, you know, when a wasp buzzes around you, if you get freaked out, then it's much more likely to attack you because it's picking up on those pheromones. And it's a very similar kind of thing. It's like, you know, the more fear we put out there, the more we're kind of driven into that kind of how can you put it? I suppose that cycle, that circle, that kind of wheel of life in a way, where you just keep going over the same, like revisiting the same places, the same stories, the same situations, because our fears, we're being controlled by our fears. We're allowing ourselves to be controlled by our fears. And so this kind of concept of compassion and empathy and being able to connect with other people through that emotion is very alien to some people. In particular. So again, this kind of comes through for me as that kind of controlling element, who don't have the same compassion, don't have the same empathy, don't have that kind of developed amygdala, so they're still coming from that very kind of reptilian brain side, which has been what's the word I'm looking for here? It's been kind of stopped from being developed, and often that can be because of trauma as well. But the card itself, for me, is kind of bringing up a lot of that fear element. And in our subconscious, and what we're not so aware of at this time, this came through in an interesting way. I can see all these kind of, seeing them as like the watchers, the kind of ancient ones, if you like, kind of holders of the wisdom down the ages. But I'm also seeing it in a kind of, again, that kind of division between them. But this light really drew my attention. This light coming through from this gap, and this light is coming through from the moon behind, it feels like to me. And it's kind of lighting up this little being who's standing there on the edge of this bridge. And I feel that that's kind of where we are at. Again, I think this card has come out in a reading that I've done before. It's almost like we are at the end of this bridge. It's almost like the end of the era, the Piscean age, moving into the Aquarian age. So we've reached that end point. And we can't go back. We can't go back down the road that we've just come. I mean, you keep hearing that returning to normal. If we just do this and if we just do that, we will return to normal. Well, that's just not going to happen, because we can't go back. You can't turn the time back. It doesn't work that way. Especially astrologically as well, when planets move and change on such a grand scale, then the energy shifts, everything shifts. We have to shift with it. Otherwise, we just end up kind of in this stuck energy, which we're kind of at this time, because we're not really into the whole new energy itself. It's like, I called my astrological reading, I called it In Between Two Worlds, because that's where I feel we are at this time. We've literally kind of like not quite in the new one, but we're also not out of the other one. So there's kind of like this limbo place, almost like that we're in at this time. But the moon here also represents emotions, and it also represents the feminine side as well, which I feel is being blocked. And so for me, it's kind of coming through as these beings on the, all in the green here, as being the kind of masculine, very kind of patriarchal. And then these beings over here are more the kind of feminine. That's just how it's coming through. It's like that division again, that two sides of everything. There is two sides to everything. And so this is slowly, it's like almost like we need this energy. We need this emotional energy. We need to come out of this, which we've been living in for such a long time. This detached, kind of just me energy is how it's coming through here. Energy of also, yeah, fear of survival as well. Fear of not having enough. That can also be something that drives us. Survival of like fear of not being able to have enough to stay alive even. So that can kind of make us very much competitive. Again, that's something else that I'm feeling with this as well. That competitive, fear-driven, wanting to get to the top, wanting to get to the pinnacle. But of course, when you get to that pinnacle, there's very few people up there and they're all kind of a like mind. They're all very kind of similar, so it kind of feeds off itself, that energy. But there's also a sense of being fed off of as well. So what I'm getting here is the need for the feminine energy to come back into balance, because here there's a lot more of these on this side than there is on this side as well. So there's a need for that feminine energy to come back into its own, which is kind of being pushed further and further out, because of course the feminine also represents nature, and we're kind of taking steps further and further away from that. That's part, unfortunately, of this kind of Aquarian hive mind as well, of getting us all into this kind of I said this before as well, this kind of like universe within a universe, if you like recreating something or illusion within an illusion. So we already kind of live in this illusionary sense of this world, and now they want to put us in another bubble inside that illusionary world, instead of kind of trying to understand more about ourselves in a way and who we really are. It's kind of disconnecting even more. So it kind of feels as though this is the message, the deeper subconscious message is to reconnect, not disconnect. We need to reconnect with the feminine, with Mother Earth, with the moon energy, our emotions. Whereas like this energy here just wants to disconnect us more and more and more, so that it can control more and more and more. So what we have moving in to our future is an interesting card, because right at the very centre of this card here, which for me kind of represents the Mother Nature energy, this tree here, in the very centre we have a Buddha, and this kind of for me is like the womb energy here, being in the very centre, and the Buddha represents ourselves. Like the Buddha nature, our ultimate nature, our spiritual nature, our connection with everything, which is also what I'm seeing here with these kind of flowing kind of rainbow chakras as well. And there's like this river here. It's like reconnecting with our chakras, reconnecting with our connection to everything. And again, recognizing how important the mother energy is, the more it's been blocked and removed from our lives and not given its importance or its value. And so I kind of see it as a rebirth card. Like it's time to take that leap of faith into the unknown. So this is kind of coming through a bit like the Fool energy of the tarot as well. That leap into the unknown. We don't know where it's going to take us, and we don't know what's going to happen when we take that leap of faith. But we do know that we can't relive what we've already done. We can't go back. We can't try and turn back the time, literally. It's like, you know, we can only go forward. And this card is saying that in order to do so, we need to awaken our conscious awareness, but also reconnect. Again, it feels like this reconnecting energy, connecting with the earth, connecting with the mother, connecting with the feminine, remembering that the feminine is how we get here. It's how we get here. And it's interesting as well, because I didn't mention it earlier, but there is this very phallic penis in the background here. Which is kind of like being shut off from this very kind of sexually kind of demanding, in a way, vagina. By the looks of things, it's very kind of red hot and flaming, but there's this kind of, again, there's this cut off, there's this bridge, so it's like almost like, again, that disconnection between the two, between the masculine and the feminine. Again, this disconnection which needs to be brought back into its rightful understanding. Balance. It needs to be brought back into balance, so that we realize and understand that, you know, both are equally as important, because everything is about balance. Also, I'm seeing this as the earth herself as well, going through her own rebirth. Her own awakening. Which is also to do with our consciousness as well. The more we awaken consciously, the more our planet awakens as well. The more we tune into her energy, the more she will awaken within us, and we will awaken within her. So there's kind of this combination, this connection, which again has been disconnected for a long time now. But it is like this rising up energy that is coming in. So it's almost, it's interesting because I'm seeing this as like the masculine and the feminine energies in a way. The past and the future, where we're leaving, what we're leaving behind and what we're heading into, is where these two cards are. So that's interesting. So then we have this little being, this little ant being down here, which I'm seeing kind of as representative of us, the workers, if you like. And he's got this little kind of mushroom house here. But there's something about like the cellular level here as well. Like things like DNA, cellular level of everything. The more you look at these cards, the more you see. There's so much in them, little beings that pop out all over the place. But the card, the tree behind it, is kind of similar again to this one here. I'm seeing it in a very similar way. This, I feel, is a protection energy as well. And if you look carefully, you can see the sun over here, just kind of popping up over the horizon with this kind of strange look. I'm presuming it's the sun. It looks very, yeah, it's very sun-like, kind of almost cartoonish in a way. And in the sky behind the tree, you can see those kind of, there's like this face up here, and then there's like a pound sign here, and then there's a graveyard or a grave and a cross up there as well. So it's kind of representing, again, that kind of material realm, but it feels as though that's something that is kind of leaving. It's like that's done, that's past, that's where we've come from. There's also a dollar sign in there as well, so that whole thing is all about kind of the money and the material sense of the world. Whereas this feels more like, I mean, it's very much the focus of the card as well, this whole kind of thing here about being protected and protecting our how's that coming through, protecting our, well, it is literally like protecting our DNA, protecting our cellular being. But it does feel like, as I was saying, almost like that's the past. What is behind this tree here is the past, and almost like it's being kind of like, again with this little sun down here as well, almost like it's kind of like that masculine, patriarchal, very domineering, very dominant energy. If you think of the sun when it's out, it's very dominant, it's very domineering energy, whereas the moon is always a lot more subtle. It's a much more subtle energy. Like the sun can do damage, the sun can burn, but the moon, which reflects the sun's light, is much more, like I say, just much more subtle. But again, it's like it needs the sunlight in order to be there. So there does need to be this balance, but something, yeah, DNA, cellular level, protecting what is ours on that very deep rooted, like again going all the way back to nature. And I'm just getting protecting what is ours. Let's see what else we get as we go through. So how the world kind of sees itself at the moment is in this battle, it feels. So again, like nature, and down here you've got this kind of stone being that the tree is kind of like defeating. And it's coming through this sense of like this stone being, if you like, has been, it's coming through like concrete, like cold and hard and oppressive and like everywhere. If you think of the planet, it's kind of covered in all of this harsh, cold, like architecture and houses, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like this anymore. Like there's some amazing houses and places that are kind of very much connected to nature. They work with nature, the homes work with nature, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here, is this kind of war, if you like, between these two, nature and, I suppose in some respects it is like man, human, the human race. It's also coming through in this sense of again, I suppose, the masculine and the feminine, as well as Atlantis and Lemuria as well. For those who know anything about Atlantis and Lemuria, Atlantis was very much based in like technology and controlling, and Lemuria was much more nature, feminine. Like Atlantis was very much the masculine side of things, and Lemuria was very much the feminine. So again, there was that kind of mothering nature and nurturing, as opposed to the more kind of controlling, dominating energy. And another thing that's really interesting and always fascinated me as well is, like, you know, it doesn't matter how much concrete you put down, eventually nature will find a way to break through and break free. You see it everywhere. You see it on roads, you see it on buildings, pavements, all over. Nature will always break through and fight back. And we got another interesting card come out with this as well. So there was these two cards that came out together. And this card is kind of showing me like a source energy up here with these beings. And I'm seeing each of these beings as like a planet. So it's a very astrological feel about all of this. And about how, as I was saying, things shift, things change. It's like a spiral energy here. So things are forever constantly spiraling up, and our universe is constantly changing. Our galaxy, the solar system that we are in, is constantly moving. It's like the story that we've been told about it just being this kind of flat disc that doesn't do anything except spin round and round. It is moving all the time into different parts of the universe. It may take a long time for that to happen, but that is happening. And it's another reason why things get affected. It's another reason why we get things like changes in weather, etc., etc. Different planets coming into our star system, solar system. So that's how I'm kind of seeing this, because there's also this scroll that they've got kind of between them there, like the wisdom, and it's almost again like the astrological clock. Like everything is kind of timed out already. It's like everything is already set out in the heavens. You can go from any time in history and see where the planets are, and you can move forward, and they will always be doing what they're there to do, what they're designed to do. And so that's kind of how I'm seeing this energy, is it being very kind of like with our earth down here in a way, is kind of all of this energy here is affecting us. So it's like saying that this time, this very masculine time, if you like, has been what we've been living through for a very, very, very long time. Our ancestry, our history, even though that is yet to be really revealed fully. And I feel as well with this scroll in between them here with all this kind of information, it kind of feels like ancient information that is yet to be kind of revealed or given to us, or for us to understand. It feels more like revealed, because there's a lot of galactic energy that we're connecting with at this time as well. So this could also be channelings that are coming through for people as well. Information that's being passed down. But it feels more, again, like the shifting energy as we move out of the... I'm going to bring some numerology into this as well, like the number 1, which we've been in for, well, since the year 1. That energy has been very predominant because everything has started with that number 1, and then in 2000 we moved into the number 2, which is the feminine. So the number 1 is the masculine energy in numerology, and number 2 is the feminine energy, and so we are getting further and further into that kind of feminine energy again. But there needs to be this kind of balance, as I was saying. It's kind of like the masculine needs to be able to accept the feminine within them, and vice versa. But maybe it needs to kind of swing, like over balance, like tip over the other way before it can come back into some kind of overall kind of steady balance, which maybe will happen when, like, years and years and years and years ahead in time, when we move into the number 3, and who knows what will be happening by that time. But that's how I'm kind of seeing this energy here. It's kind of bringing in this new energy, this new frequency that we are relating to more and more. And here we have our hopes and our fears, which is full of our past, of our history, which is very interesting because all of these are books and scrolls, and of course books and scrolls are all written on paper as well. So again, that goes back to nature. I'm just kind of getting another message through as well about how, like, everything written in a way, things that are written down, like the discovery. Again, it feels like rediscovery of old scrolls, we still haven't kind of got to the bottom of things yet. There's still lots more to be discovered about our own history and what we believe to be our history. It's interesting because there is this kind of little wizard person up here, and he's kind of battling this kind of alien type creature on the other side. I don't know if you can see that very well, that little that there is a kind of like a wizardy magician with all his scrolls and his books and his wisdom and his knowledge and his understanding. And then over here, it could be a her, but over here there's this kind of like strange alien creature type thing. He's obviously kind of battling with it. Or she is, whichever. So yeah, there's an interesting, and I do just feel as though it does represent the wisdom and the knowledge that has been gathered that is yet to be revealed. If you see that this is actually a book in itself, within the pages of a book, and there is so much that has been kind of hidden from us, and it's almost similar. There's a similarity between these two somehow as well, and this is the kind of final outcome here. And if you see, there's this rope there that's kind of snapping. And I also see it as a kind of an egg, a giant egg, with the sun kind of setting there as well, which again kind of goes back to that sense of birthing, rebirth, and the feminine energy. Because eggs are kind of connected to the feminine. But it feels like a sense of freedom as well. It's interesting because it's kind of, I've seen this card before, and I've kind of seen these people kind of rushing into this, but today it feels as though they're kind of coming away from this energy. These people down here are kind of dancing and singing. There's like this sense of freedom and liberation and something that is kind of closing here, as this rope kind of snaps. Almost like it can no longer kind of hold whatever it was that it was holding. Sorry. And the sun is kind of, as it's setting, it's kind of literally kind of showing this yellow, like yellow road, I suppose, yellow kind of, almost like the yellow brick road. But it feels as though it's kind of coming out of this shell, out of this like control in a way, or not, but kind of container, like something that's had us contained or kept in a certain limited way of viewing things. There's a sense of freedom and liberation within this card. A sense of at last being able to enjoy. Because these little people down here are kind of dancing and expressing themselves. It feels as though they're kind of expressing themselves freely. No longer trapped. Possibly by limitations, our own limitations as well. And there's another thing about the egg being very delicate as well. Like it's a very delicate thing, kind of quite easy to break or to break through. but you have to kind of want to do it in order to escape. Maybe first of all you have to realise that that's what's happening, that we are kind of trapped in this egg or this force field, this kind of it just feels like something that's limiting, a limiting energy, something that has limited us from understanding or seeing the bigger picture. So, I'm very quickly going to see what else we have here. I am aware of that time, so let's see what we get for this solar eclipse reading. Solar eclipse reading. I wasn't going to use this deck of cards. I was actually going to use a different deck, and then when I was shuffling them, they all fell down. Well, before I was shuffling them, actually, while I was shuffling them, and just before, I thought to myself, am I using the right deck of cards, or should I be using a different deck? And then cards that I was shuffling all fell, or some of them fell on the floor, so I ended up going down to pick them up, and as I was picking them up I actually found one of these cards under the table, and I thought, oh, that's really weird, because I just kind of thought about that previously, and I'd shuffled these previously as well, thinking that I was maybe going to use them as well, but then I changed my mind there too. So back to these cards. Anyway, so we have the Seven of Water, which is confusion, not knowing what it is that we've got, is how it's kind of coming through here. And it's coming through with these two cards. So it feels like kind of things being overwhelming, like too much, like I say, not really, like, again, that disconnected, that kind of sense of disconnection and kind of separation of things. The Seven can be castles in the air, kind of too much choice. Very watery energy, as in the sense of possibly not understanding our own feelings on things at this time as well. Like maybe not being able to trust how we feel about things that are happening in our lives. A lot of confusion around what's taking place around us in our environment. Things not making sense is how it's coming through. Seeing it very much as a Neptune energy, in fact. Neptune being kind of disillusion, that kind of nebulous energy that you can't quite kind of grasp, the unknown, not knowing, again, it's that sense of like not knowing if, you know, which path to take or which one to choose. Is it the right decision? Where's it going to lead? And it's come out with the Strength card as well over the top. The Strength card for me is that sense of balance of the masculine and the feminine energy, knowing when it's best to kind of work with one or work with the other, or try to kind of make some sense and some balance of it all. It's also looking a bit like the Wheel of Fortune as well, or the karmic wheel we've got earlier, this wheel here of things just going round and round and round, and us kind of trying to stay strong within it all, find our inner strength, inner support, if you like, which I also feel kind of relates to this middle column, that sense of kind of balancing, or really kind of finding, yeah, that rooted strength, finding that rooted strength, whatever that kind of means for you on a personal level, and working with that. And that could be to do with the feminine energy as well, getting out in nature and finding your strength, connecting through that, rooting into nature as everything becomes really confusing. Big strong Neptune energy at the moment, and Neptune energy is just going to get stronger and stronger. So we have the Five of Earth, which is interesting because that was the card that was under my table earlier. And this is the card for me of kind of stagnation, of things like just, I'm kind of seeing it as this pathway here. And things just, nothing's changing, everything is stagnant, nothing's kind of, it's like becoming part of the furniture, becoming part of the scenery, becoming part of the normal, and just kind of losing our own identity within it all, losing ourselves within it all. Like, who are we? As we just kind of become covered with all this kind of growth that I was talking about as well. Covered with this kind of fog. Growth in the sense of like being grown over, like, you know, as I was saying, that nature always finds a way to grow through everything. And this is kind of what's happened here, is kind of this, but it's like this fog. So it feels like we've lost our sense of connection. We are disconnected. I'm seeing this light here kind of being this flower here as well. And in the Five of Earth, it's just like this, almost like a statue type energy. It's almost like so stagnant, so kind of like almost robotic, can't really kind of move or flow, or because everything has become so grown over, in the sense of like ingrained. It's coming through like ingrained beliefs and ingrained kind of yeah, ideas, opinions. There's no freedom, there's no movement, there's no kind of being able to be ourselves. Loss of identity. So we have the Nine of Fire and the Magician with this controlling energy here as well. And the Nine of Fire, Nine of Wands, and the Magician together I find really interesting, because this really is that sense of the mysterious and the magical and the creative force. Because if you see here, it's kind of like the stars are turning into these fireflies, or it can be the other way round as well. It's like, but there's kind of this understanding that it is possible to change things as well, that things don't have to be, or they're not always as they appear. They don't have to stay the same. And with the Magician energy here as well, which is all about the kind of attraction, the law of attraction, working with the elements, changing our viewpoint on something, changing how we see something will change our world. And it's a bit like I'm seeing with these kind of these spirals, oh sorry about that brightness, these spirals behind him there, kind of seeing that as not just ripples that ripple out, although I'm seeing it but like that, but also kind of like fractals. So it's like you change one part of something and it changes something else, which kind of ripples out into the bigger picture of things. So it's working with our, it feels like, you know, crossing over that bridge, facing our fears, crossing over the bridge and realizing that we have that, we are that, if you like, in many ways. We are, this is us, we are these kind of fractal beings. And also this sense of I can put it like again, to do with connection, like a connection with something bigger, something much yeah, the grander scale of things. But it's interesting as well with this attraction energy, which I'm feeling with both of these as well, because the solar eclipse is literally next to this thing in the sky called the Grand Attractor, which basically kind of is like a giant hoover. It's like it's so powerful, its magnetism is so powerful that it just attracts these massive galaxies towards it constantly, that kind of get swept up and kind of like thrown back out again, but as completely different. So it's almost like, you know, that energy here, the same, it's a similar kind of thing of like working with the elements, understanding the energy behind it all, that it is all energy, it's not all mass, it's not all just physical, it is also very energetic, very kind of magnetic. What we are putting out there, we're going to kind of bring back towards us. So if we're kind of putting out all this fear energy, that's more of what we are going to receive. And that's kind of what it's saying to me, is that we have been in that energy for a long time. It's the same thing. It's always been there. It hasn't changed since time immemorial, but we are still kind of like learning. We're in that learning process, the beginnings of learning it, of understanding the reality. And then we have the Queen of Air. which is a very feminine energy here, with the owl of wisdom on her shoulder. The owls represent wisdom, they represent far-sightedness, being able to see things clearly in the dark, which of course the moon is also always in the dark. The owl is a night creature. Far-sightedness, she is very far-sighted, this queen as well. She does have the ability to cut through and pierce through things to get to the core of something. Like she has that kind of insight. Perceptive, very, very perceptive. And I also feel as well there's this sense of like with this little being down here as well, as I was saying, we can't go back, so he's got to jump, he's got to kind of trust that he's going to be like almost like that he can fly, if you like, in a way. And this is very, Queen of Air is also very Aquarian energy as well. The air energy moving into the age of Aquarius. It's kind of like trusting that we have more I'm just seeing this above her head as well, which I've never really seen that. It's never really jumped out at me in the way that it's jumping out at the moment. And again, it kind of relates somehow to the fractals, but there's this, all of this kind of like very third eye is how it's coming through. This really strong kind of third eye energy here. Which is again very Aquarius, like awakening energy. So there's this sense of awakening, this deeper awakening from within us. And this is the subconscious as well. So this is what we're not so aware of. And it's almost like all of this that we've had to go through is kind of pushing us and forcing us into growing on a higher spiritual way of seeing the world. Okay, that's interesting because we've got the Hierophant over the top of this card here. And the Hierophant, interestingly, although it's actually a feminine Hierophant here, it's a very masculine energy, the Hierophant. And it's very much related to, I see it very much as related to the, although in this card it doesn't look very related to the masculine kind of church history, shall we say, of like the Pope, and because it's usually very much to do with the, there's usually a Pope and people kind of worshipping that energy. So I see it as kind of moving away from all of that, possibly even moving away from all this kind of paraphernalia, if you like, and becoming more kind of focused within our own intent is what's coming through here, without kind of having to, because the Hierophant is always the bridge in between. It's kind of like the the connection to the higher source energy, which like today has really kind of like lost it's just not there. That connection is not there. It's just kind of like repetitive, same story over and over again, and there's no creativity, no creative kind of, no space for change or creativity, or it's like trying to live in the old and it doesn't fit. It's like it just doesn't fit. And that's what I'm getting from this here. It's like a new day being dawned or rebirthed, or and this is no longer no longer where the answers lie, is what I'm kind of being told. The answers are not to be found there. The answers are to be found within. So it's like a movement away from traditional belief systems, which is very much this Sagittarius solar eclipse, in fact. Belief systems, faith systems, churches, religion. It's like moving away from it because we no longer need it. We have our own inner awakening and connection. Because as I was saying, the priests were literally seen as being the I mean, originally they, again, I've said this before, but they would have been the shaman or the wise women, and they would have been the ones who knew how to connect with the other realms. And there we have the Wheel of Fortune, or Fortune's Wheel, which for me is very much this kind of same energy here as well. So it's like destiny, things moving forward for us. Again, there feels like kind of some need to, if you see there's a little person inside kind of peering out. And so it feels, again, it's similar, like for some reason it's kind of connecting me with this cellular, oh, I'm sorry about these glares. It's like round the outside here is also very similar to me for some reasons coming through, like these same cellular level, interconnected, everything's kind of working, weaving together, kind of source energy. If you look here as well, there's kind of this heart shape above that as well. But this Wheel of Fortune, again, there's a sun, or a very kind of, yeah, a sun inside that. So it's coming through like the Wheel of Life in the same way of kind of like something very primordial about it. Like as the wheel turns, things change, but there's this kind of still this protection energy here, and I feel the same here as well, like needing to protect our again, it's going back to this kind of cellular DNA, protect ourselves, protect our body, protect our mind. as the Wheel of Fortune turns, for some people, like it's like, you know, to climb that ladder, it's like you're either down here or you're up here, kind of thing. And again, that depends on our viewpoint of where we come in as well. As in, you know, you can be born with all the riches in the world, but when the kind of the wheel turns and it's time for things to change, then astrologically, on a much bigger picture, because I'm seeing this more as a bigger picture thing, then you can't fight that destiny, if you like. You can't kind of, it's like a much bigger story being unfolded, and this is just kind of a part of that story that is being unfolded. But it goes back to this very primordial kind of need to protect and survive. But I'm also seeing that little person in there as well, kind of as a similar, oh, that's interesting, and this similar kind of sense of this Buddha here being like the conscious self. So there's a similar kind of, again, idea of this conscious self being just, again, it just feels like protected, like something that we need to I just see this little ant kind of hiding behind this big tree, which is almost like this hand kind of like holding it out of the way while all this stuff's happening around. Like all this kind of craziness. And the Wheel of Fortune looks similar as well today. It's like hiding away, just like peeking out, a bit like the sun peeking out over the top here. It's kind of coming through in this same kind of, is it safe? Is it safe to come out yet? Is it safe? Is how it's coming through, this kind of protection. Is it safe? And we've also got the Hermit energy here as well, which again, if you see there's this little face that peeks out behind that door. So it's kind of, again, more protection energy, keeping things like protected. And also with the Hermit going within as well. I'm kind of getting a strong theme of that as well, this kind of need to go within to discover our true identity. Like it's no longer to be found in the things that we've been led to believe is what life's all about. You know, seeking, searching, making money, and then you kind of die and leave it all and there's nothing else kind of story that we've been told over and over for so long. You know, this kind of sense of seeking deeper, going deeper into things, diving below the surface, looking for the answers. that are within as well. It's like they are within, the answers are within, they are not outside of ourselves. And that it's all connected. And that there is no separation as well to any of that. And I also find it very interesting as well, and this is something that kind of keeps coming up in my own head as well, is that if you believe in reincarnation, if you do believe that there is like the wheel of destiny or the wheel of karma where you keep coming back lifetime after lifetime to grow spiritually and to experience different parts of life, and that it is the universe that is experiencing itself through you every time you come back to have a different experience, then there's also the kind of understanding that we are also our ancestors. So when we read about different times of history and periods of history, we're also reading about our own stories, in the sense that we could well have been living in those particular times. So if we're drawn to a particular time for any particular reason, then that could be why we are pulled towards that time of history, because it's something there for us to rediscover within ourselves and to bring forth through this particular lifetime. We may have wisdom and knowledge that we learnt then that is ready to come back into our lives now, and to be rewritten even, is what I'm getting through here as well. Something being rewritten. So anyway, we have the Six of Fire, which is victory. That's a good card to have in our hopes and our fears. Rising above it all, leaving the old stories behind. Is also how that's coming through with the Two of Fire. Yeah, kind of moving into these new stories, these new new creative endeavors, the new. Two is always about something that's new. It comes after the Ace. The Ace is the initial energy that comes in, and then the Two is when you actually start to work with that energy. And we also have the Page of Wands. But the Page of Wands is upside down. The Page of Wands for me is that child-like innocence. It's not the Page of Wands, so it's the Page of Water. Emotional innocence, still learning, still kind of, and that's kind of how it feels, as though we're still kind of in that place of learning. But when the page is upside down, it can be very kind of like immature. I mean, it isn't immature energy anyway, but when it's in reverse, it means that it can be very reluctant energy. an energy that's not open to feeling what needs to be felt. Yeah, like an emotional storm. Like an emotional storm brewing all around, and kind of, again, kind of feeling like this childlike innocence, but that childlike innocence also being something that we don't want to acknowledge or look at in that sense. Like we're not ready to grow up, is literally how it's kind of feeling. Take responsibility for our emotional experiences. And the last card that we have here is the Queen of Earth, which is kind of saying that we need to bring it all back again to that kind of point of Earth, of Mother Nature. The Queen of Earth represents very much that, like, you know, the realm that we live in. We live in the material realm. It is our body, and it kind of has this feeling of we are emotional beings, creative beings, we are creators. That's what we do, we create. Earth energy is very much to do with creating, but here it's also to do with the female aspect of nurturing, and I'm seeing these kind of little flowers in her hair as being very kind of star-like. Almost coming through like a waterfall today. Like a waterfall with these kind of little stars kind of connecting everything together. So there's this sense of coming back to ourselves, coming back to the body, coming back to, because the Queen of Earth represents all the different senses as well: feeling, smell, sight, touch, all the very kind of physical pleasures are all wrapped up within the Queen of Earth energy. And she wants to experience, she wants to feel good, she wants to know that life is good, she wants the pleasures of life, but she wants to also be aware, she's very aware of the damage, of the dangers of overindulging, overdoing things. So it's interesting with this Page of Water, again, it's this sense of like having to work on the emotional level. We have to work on the emotions in order to be able to kind of find that maturity within ourselves as well. And also to understand that there is no disconnection, because if you think of water, water kind of just pours into things, it just fills things up, it just flows and will just keep going. The Queen of Earth is a very, for me it's a very Taurian card. I see it very much as a Taurus, very kind of strong, determined energy. But it's also a building energy as well in that sense. I'm also getting family, community, coming together. And it's over the top of this card here as well, which was kind of that breaking free. So this could also be to do with like community, like family, tribe family, spiritual family. Kind of finding the people that you belong with and building a new future, but one that's kind of like got more respect, shall we say, more reverence. Again, going back to what I was talking about, working with rather than against Mother Nature, working together. Because she always works better with us than she does against us. So, very, very quickly, I'm going to pull a Native American. That was too quick. Oh, okay. Native American medicine card. I haven't pulled these for a long time and I was kind of drawn to do it. And we get Hawk medicine today. So let's see what Hawk medicine wants to tell us. Hawk is the messenger in the sky. Circle my dreams and teach me the message as we fly, which was interesting because I was also talking about flying with this card as well. And that might just be kind of like vision. Vision flying. It's a word that I'm not getting there, but like vision dreaming, visionaries. That's kind of coming through quite strongly. Visionary. So Hawk is akin to Mercury, the messenger of the gods. Hawk medicine teaches you to be observant, to look at your surroundings, observe the obvious in everything that you do. Life is sending you signals. Life is the initiation. If you have pulled, and that's kind of what I was getting from this card here. If you have pulled the Hawk card, then right now a clue about the magic of life is being brought to you. This magic can imbue you with the power to overcome a currently stressful or difficult situation. The test is your ability to observe the nuances of power lurking nearby. Is power the talent you have and are not using? Are solutions always hard to find because you have lost the broader vision of Hawk? Or is the Great Spirit displaying a gift that you need only to receive? Have the colours of the morning inspired you to create? Or has the gloominess of a present situation left you earthbound, unable to hear the voice within the raindrops splashing on your window? Pay attention. You are only as powerful as your capacity to perceive, receive, and use your abilities. What is called for here is an intuitive ability to discern the message carried within the cry of Hawk. The shrillness of Hawk's call pierces the state of unawareness and asks you to seek the truth. The ancients recognized the magnificent bird of prey as a messenger, bringing tidings to their earth walk. The good red road from the world of the grandfathers and grandmothers who lived before them. If hawk were to magically cry, it was a sign to be aware. Sorry, it was a sign to beware or be aware. This could mark the coming of a warring tribe, the birth of a child, or the celebration of counting coup. Hawk's cry signalled the need for the beholder to heighten awareness and receive a message. Don't know what counting coup is. So hawk medicine is a totem that is filled with responsibility because hawk people see the overall view. Hawk is not like mouse who sees everything through a magnifying glass. Hawk medicine people are aware of omens, messages from the spirit and the colour of the calling card you gave them 3 months ago. No detail slips by them unnoticed. If hawk has circled and landed in your card spread, you are to be aware of signals in your life, so notice and receive them. Hawk may be teaching you to grab an opportunity which is coming your way. On the other hand, hawk may be bringing you the message that you should circle over your life and examine it from a higher perspective. From this vantage point, you may be able to discern the hazards which bar you from freedom of light, which is interesting because that's kind of what I was feeling with this card. The kind of not seeing the bigger picture. And this, I feel, is that energy of a higher perspective. Seeing things from that higher perspective. And that's something like, it's in our subconscious, so it's something that we're not aware of yet. It hasn't kind of risen up into our conscious awareness. Remember, hawk has a keen eye and a bold heart, for hawk flies close to the light of grandfather sun. So that is where I'm going to leave the reading today, and say thank you very much to those of you who have come over to watch my video and to my channel. Thank you very much if you've subscribed. Thank you very much if you share and have liked my videos. I really do appreciate it. It really is. It seems like a really small thing, but when you like a video, it makes all the difference as to the algorithms being kind of picking it up, etc, etc. So to those of you who do like my videos and do thumbs them up for me, I really do appreciate it. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please could you do so. Subscribe, share and like is, as I was saying, really important. This video is also going to be put into the playlist, as all my videos are, so if you're interested in checking out any of those, I do the full moons, new moons, both the astrology and the tarot, and I do the sun signs as well, although I haven't for a while, but there are quite a few videos there that you can go and check out for yourselves if you are interested. I don't do times or dates, I just do titles. So if there's a title that kind of grabs your attention and you think that it kind of makes sense to you at that time, then it is your reading, because time really kind of doesn't make any difference, because crap happens in life at any point in time. So you could be experiencing something now that somebody else was experiencing 6 months, a year ago. So just take it as your video. Also, for the cross watchers out there as well, like, the story could be yours even if you're watching it for somebody else as well, so just be aware of that as well. Anyway, it's all explained in the videos that I've done. So again, thank you. Wishing you all the best for this solar eclipse energy that we are going through, and the next kind of coming months and into 2022 as well. It's going to be very strong. Just be aware of changes that are happening very rapidly around us. And on that note, I'm going to leave you and hopefully I will see you all again soon.